Russian forces today attacked western Ukraine for the first time, launching strikes on airfields and thus widening the 2.5-week war. Russia also hit a major industrial city in the east, Dnipro, as it continued its brutal military campaign. Also today, President Biden and other leaders of the so-called G7 nations revoked Russia's most favored nation trade status, which will allow for higher tariffs on Russian exports. And U.S. officials said today that the large Russian military convoy near Kiev had dispersed as the Russians made incremental advances on the city. But we again begin our coverage tonight from the western city of Lviv with our foreign affairs correspondent, Nick Schifrin.
In a city that until now had been spared, a residential block reduced to rubble. Fires still burning where homes once stood, where families once lived. Civilians left for dead just a few feet from their front doors. It is day 16, and for the first time, Russia bombed the industrial hub Dnipro.
I have only one observation here. This is a continuation of fighting by terrorist methods.
Also for the first time, Russian missiles struck military airfields in western Ukraine. Residents near the Polish border filmed massive explosions. It's an expansion of the war, perhaps to disrupt supplies arriving into what had been Ukraine's quiet west. In the east, in Kharkiv, the Russians once again targeted a hospital. More than 30 have been attacked. 5,000 miles away, Russia's ambassador accused the U.S. of, quote, biological activities in Ukraine. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield accused the Russian pot of calling the kettle black.
Russia has a track record of falsely accusing other countries of the very violations that Russia itself is perpetrating.
Those violations include indiscriminate shelling of residential buildings. These today just outside Kyiv. The Russian military claimed in new video troops outside the capital were advancing. Satellite images show the 40-mile convoy that sat north of the capital now dispersed to prevent Ukrainian attacks. And a senior U.S. defense official said Russian soldiers made, quote, additional advancements toward Kyiv from the northwest and east. The battle for Kyiv is intensifying. Soldiers in a suburb are pinned down by a Russian barrage. They make a run for it before opening up. Ukrainian soldiers are defending their land. And in quieter moments, say they're motivated by revenge for this war's most heinous attacks. This soldier calls himself Devil.
We will kill all the for Mariupol. We'll multiply them by 0.
How's your leg? Could be better.
Jan Fedra is a captain in the Ukrainian army. He was injured last week in the battle for Hostomel. He filmed the aftermath.
I knew that I can die at that moment, but I did everything I could. The Russians, they lost the whole company, including the vehicles.
And why do you think you had that success?
We were more motivated than them. Like, they were thinking they're just like on a business trip to Ukraine. Those woods at the front of us, they shooting at us from there.
We first met then Lieutenant Fedra in 2016 when he was deployed to the front line in eastern Ukraine, faced off against Russian-backed separatists.
That's not a civil war. That's like a war between the Ukraine and Russia. It's my country. I defended my country.
You were proud that you'd been trained with NATO techniques. Do you think that that has made a difference?
It's modern warfare. It's not like Soviet tactics. To my brothers at the battle who are right now, боріться, братья, і поборемо.
What's that mean?
Fight my brothers and we'll win. My real brother, right now, he said.
Where is he?
Somewhere around Kyiv. He's in a recce group, so I don't ask him. When he calls me, I just ask, are you okay? He says. He says he's okay. That like hard, like I was worried about my brother. He'll be fine. Give me a second.
When you invade peaceful country, peaceful cities, and you're not defending life, you're killing life. You're not defending humanity, you're destroying the things that are most human.
Andriy Zelinsky is the Greek Catholic Church's chief chaplain. He's seen more war than most soldiers. He spent 3 years on the front lines in eastern Ukraine, where he blessed and lost dozens of friends in battle.
When you have friends, when you have close people around you, when they leave, they take a part of you with them. And when many of them begin to leave, so there appears certain void in you, certain emptiness.
Above us, doves for soldiers killed since 2014. It's called the St. Peter and Paul Garrison Church. It celebrates the thousands of Ukrainian soldiers who have died since Russia's initial invasion.
War is chaos. It's also a dimension where human beings live, which means they have their dreams. There are examples when people get married in the battlefield. They have their hopes for the future. The mission of the military chaplain is to preserve humanity. And this is not an abstract thing. It's realized in our capacity to choose good, in our capacity to seek truth, and in our human capacity to contemplate beauty. A person who was accompanying me in one of the hottest spots of Donbass in 2016, actually I baptized him years before, we used to stop and to contemplate either the sunset or the sunrise. Later on he became a hero of Ukraine, and sad because he was killed last week.
In 2016, Valeria Chibanayev won the Order of the Gold Star, Ukraine's highest military honor. He died last week in the same battle for Hostomel, where Captain Fidra fought. This week, the church held funerals for 5 soldiers killed in the current invasion.
And what do you say to the families of the soldiers who've been killed in the last 2 weeks?
Hope. Hope that everything was not in vain. That freedom and dignity are not mere words. That these are cornerstones of our Ukrainian destiny.
And do you think the scars that you were just describing will heal?
The scars require time. Nothing heals itself. My life is in my hands, and my country is there as well. So our scars are in our hands as well. We can treat them. You can heal your scars, but you can heal the scars of your neighbor, and he can heal your scars, because only humanity can afford this gift of healing somebody else's wounds.
Father Zelensky says his job is to, quote, lean heaven toward the soldiers. And to do that, he has to help them maintain their humanity, as we just heard him talking about, in the chaos of war. But maintaining humanity also requires experiencing pain. The U.S. estimates 2,000 to 4,000 Ukrainian soldiers and National Guardsmen have been killed in just 2 weeks of war. And Father Zelensky says he expects to lose more friends, and that the only way for Ukraine to stay resilient, Judy, is to maintain its humanity.
Oh, it just breaks your heart, and you have to have enormous admiration for these individuals. Nick, one other question, and that is, aside from the attacks the Russians are now making, in more attacks in Kyiv and in the West, where else are they making progress right now?
The progress is mostly in the south, Judy, and the progress is expanding. And let's take a look at Mariupol that we've talked about so much. City officials tonight said more than 1,500 people have been killed there, but the shelling is so strong they don't actually are able to get onto the streets and actually count how many dead. And remember, this is a city that for 1 week has had no food, no water, and no power. A city official said today that, quote, humanity has not yet invented a word for what Russia is doing to us. Over to the west, in Mykolaiv, that is a strategic port city. Tonight, the Russian forces opened fire after a few days of quiet. They've been trying to seize that city for weeks. It's strategic because it is the last urban area that Russia needs to seize before they can reach Odessa, but Ukrainian forces have put up stiff resistance and have held that Russian offensive on the city off for a couple weeks. And Judy, for 2 weeks now, we have seen, of course, so much fear among Ukrainians who are fleeing the Russian fighting, but we've also seen fearlessness, including among the Ukrainian soldiers defending these cities and the people who support them.
Nick Schifrin, and we have to thank you, Nick, for day after day of extraordinary reporting in Ukraine. Thank you.